Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in today. It is jaimunji from Metal Roos, but enough about me. You're all here for the man in question, Mr. Ville Valo. How are you today, my friend?
I'm getting there slowly but surely. We're late bloomers here in Finland, as it is only 10 o'clock in the morning compared
Oh,
to you. I'm suffering. You know,
oh,
I'm a night creature. So I woke up a second ago, sucking on my third coffee and tried to get in, sort of like get my mental faculties all together, which is a challenge these days as I'm getting older. And I do have a history of being a bit of a rock and roller.
nothing wrong with that. You got to have some stories to tell. There's got to be a reason
Well,
for them.
we all need excuses, right?
Exactly, exactly. But mate, I cannot believe it that you were finally coming back to Australia after all these years, but bringing yourself as a solo artist for the first time. Like, I think it's been a decade now since you were last
It
down
has.
here. Yeah,
It
it's
has
a bit
indeed.
surreal. Did you ever think at any point of time after him kind of moved away and you settled down a bit, you'd be back on the road full time like you are? Because you just had a killer of a 2023.
Well, yeah, last year was amazing. It worked out super well, especially after the pandemic. As
Mm,
we none of us knew what to expect from future, and to see people actually enjoying music again and come to the shows and enjoy the new material as well as the old ones, because for obvious reasons, one is always afraid that you're turning into this sort of like olden goldies jukebox machine sort of thing. So I'm quite happy how it turned out, and no, it's I always take baby steps. It starts
yeah.
with picking up the acoustic guitar or whatever it might be, and see where it takes me. So you can't really tell in advance
No.
where it will take you. But the thing I have, which was actually really important to me personally, was that I felt that the tour won't feel like a proper world tour if Australia and New Zealand are not included. So I really forcefully demanded the booking agent that we need to be able to travel over yonder, because it is a special place, and I've always enjoyed. Although the visits have been very brief, as they
Mm,
usually are, especially back in the day with Soundwave and so forth. The schedules are pretty tight,
yeah.
and so there's not a lot of time to hang about. But then again, it creates the sense of hunger to come back again. So you definitely not get bored.
And it's a good excuse to start up a solo project or a new band is to tour the world again. So it's almost kind of like a working holiday, if you will.
Indeed, my man. Yeah, you got the drift. Yeah, that's the idea behind the whole second chapter of my life, to be able to travel back to Australia.
And coming back down here as well, you played Soundwave, you played some of the big European festivals. How do you feel the crowds are different that way? Because I actually, believe it or not, went and saw you at Wacken this year. I did sink into the mud, but it
I
was
was just
incredible
about
to
to ask.
see the difference between the crowds and just the atmosphere and seeing you live again. It was fantastic.
Ooh. Well, it's the vantage point we have as performers is a bit different. I
Mm,
remember Soundwave. I remember the last thing. I can't remember which one it was, but I remember seeing a proper flock of bats for the first time, because I thought it was like a massive flock of birds. I didn't know that. The sun was setting and all that, and all of a sudden the sun was sort of disappearing behind the flappy wings of our batty friends, and that was cool. Yeah, and then from Soundwave, actually, I always remember the travels, because I think it was Jane's Addiction and Faith No More, whomever they were, always in the business class, and the rest of the bands were traveling coach, and a lot of good bands and a lot of people to meet, but it keeps on changing
mm,
audience wise. I think it's been enough time has passed for him to become a vintagey sort of special thing
yeah.
for some people. So it's been more celebratory than it has in the past, for whatever reason. Touring here in Europe, and then North America and South America as well, people really seem to enjoy. Get their sort of party hat on and go for it, as opposed to being overly serious or doomy and
Mm.
gloomy in sort of goth fashion. So fingers crossed, the sort of similar elevated feel will be over there as well.
It's one of those things too, and you did mention it, people enjoying music again. As a fan in the crowd, I've noticed since the pandemic, I think people, I don't know if they know they're doing it, but they're just not taking these things for granted anymore. There's no, oh, I'll see him next time, or I'm not feeling it, or I'm just going to sit in the corner. They're like, this could get taken away at any moment, because it did. There was a long time I thought for a while, are we ever going to get live music kind of back? It just felt like it was something that was dying, and all the artists struggling through COVID to actually, pay a
Hmm.
mortgage, buy their food. It was just kind of savage. But at the same time, a lot of artists use that to their advantage and have used that time to write. Speaking of writing, how much of the writing of your album was done during the pandemic period, or did you start that way before? Has this been like years and years in the making?
No, no, no. I had a couple of ideas before the pandemic hit. I think the first songs were I wrote a trio of songs to sort of see whether I can pull it off myself or if I need a band around me, and that was in 2019.
Mm.
Started off with a song called "Run Away from the Sun," then "Salute the Sanguine" and "Saturnine Saturnalia," which ended up being on a first digital release only EP that came out in the same week the lockdown started. So it sort of like went hand in hand with the pandemic, and as I was forced to be by myself, and I was forced to find an excuse to keep on breathing.
Mm.
My excuse once again was music, and that was my crutch, and that got away me from the sort of the black hole that the pandemic was. And yeah, it kept me together, it kept me afloat, and so basically, it took me a couple of years
Yeah.
because then after we weren't sure when anybody's able to tour, so we didn't want to be one of the first. But by we, I'm not talking as in a royal we. I'm talking about me and my manager Antti,
Ah,
who's my who with whom we sort of like deviously schemed these things, and we didn't want to be one of the first bands to tour because, as you know, there was so many unknowns,
mm.
and we wanted to wait to see how it's going to be, and that's the reason why it took a while to release the album, which was January 13th, which was a Friday last year.
Which was my birthday, actually. I remember it perfect. I was born on
Oh,
Friday the 13th. The music was kind of made for me, mate. It
alrighty,
was a very nice
fantastic.
treat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Happy belated birthday twice.
Yeah, twice. Thank you very much. But going back out there live for the first time, I guess, in so long, did you get the nervous jitters, or are you kind of gotten over that as the years have gone on?
Uh, I was a nervous wreck because basically the only band I'd ever been performing proper was him. So,
Mm.
and I grew up with the guys, so it was more than just a band. It was a family and a band of brothers. So I didn't know whether I'd have it in me to write a single song that would make
Oh, wow.
sense, or so it's been kind of like taking baby steps, one song at a time, and then one production at a time. And there was a lot of firsts, which I find endearing since
Mm.
I've been around for quite quite a while now, and still being able to be excited and feel virginal, regarding
Yeah.
some experiences when being creative. So I found that to be a positive thing, because if you get stuck in that sort of routine thing, thinking that you got it, then everything is lost.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're 100% right with that. And it kind of reflects on the music. While it still feels very much like it is your music, it is definitely different and a breakaway from him at the same time. But if I was to show that to someone, go, oh, this is the old lead singer of him, people go, ah, but it is very different in a way. I feel you're put forward a lot more in this, which I guess makes sense. It's VV, Ville Valo after all. But I feel, I don't know, the vocals shine through a lot more in these songs. I guess it is a bit more completely centered on how you're doing this, if you get it.
Sure, yeah, yeah. Since there's no guitar player, wasn't a guitar player, and it wasn't a band. You don't have to get that 8 bars of squiggly squiggly uh, every 2.5 minutes. So it does change the focus a tad. But yeah, well, I think also that because I didn't know whether any of the stuff is going to be released, or whether it's going to turn out to be any good, I didn't have to compromise. I
Mm,
recorded, played all the instruments, and produced and tracked and did the whole thing by myself. So it was an interesting journey, and also what was interesting to me was the fact that it felt that I'd never been as sort of intimate with music before, because
mm,
there was no filters and there was no schedules to sort out with a ton of other people. It was
yeah.
just me and sort of me and my my Mac, but
Me, myself,
basically,
and I.
but Indeed. For better or worse, it's one of those things. I've always enjoyed artists who are a bit left of the center, who are very sort of idiosyncratic, and people who have very strong vision, like Prince or Stevie Wonder or Lenny Kravitz or Andrew Eldridge or Jazz from Killing Joke or whomever, that have a very particular view. And I thought they'd be nice to try it out, since you don't know it unless you do it. So like how it's going to turn out. And I enjoyed the process, and it taught me a lot. So I would like to continue in a similar fashion, but one thing at a time, and we have a tour to finish and album to promote. So we'll see later on in the year what's going to happen.
Yeah, you've still got some work to do before we can move on to part two. That's right. Now, I know you probably don't, but I'm always going to ask, do you have a favorite out of the new songs? Is there anything that sticks out to you? Yeah.
Well, there's a few little things. There's a song called "Heart Full of Ghosts," which kind of starts very moody, and it's probably the song that could be interpreted as being the furthest from the h.i.m. Songbook. And it starts very moody and becomes more sort of hectic and chaotic and very noisy in the end. And the cool thing about that song is that it works brilliantly live, because the dynamic really starts to shine. But when you have your PA and you can be quiet and you can really blast it in the end. And even the cooler thing is that Join Me in Death has never sounded as good as after that particular track, because songs always bounce off each other, especially live. The dynamic, the key changes, the tempo changes, all that stuff. We started to sound like Nigel Tufnell, but it's that's the stuff I've been really interested in, because also for the reason that we're doing about 50% h.i.m songs. Yeah. So it's back to back, doing old and new, and finding new perspectives on older tracks. It's what keeps me really excited about the music, so it's not once again, it's not falling into the routine of being there, done that.
Exactly. And I did want to mention that as well, because like I said, I saw you at Wacken, and I did notice it was like new song, h.i.m song, new song, h.i.m song, new song, h.i.m song, which I found very interesting, but it didn't feel so far apart from each other. You did a very good job of blending everything well. It kind of felt like I was going on a ride. Nothing felt out of place and feel like a soft song here followed by, Right Here in My Arms just blasting right out right after it. So it all fit. And was that always the plan going forward? Or when you were fiddling with the set list, did you go, I can actually make this flow?
I was hoping for it. I had my fingers and my toes and everything invertedly crossed. But it's I was hoping, because I've never liked artists who's go on a solo career and they sort of denounce their past and try to forcefully make something happen, which a lot of times doesn't really feel true to the artist. It just feels like a reaction to what's happened before. And a lot of times it's not a reaction to the music, but it's a reaction to the relationships the one person has had with the previous project or band or whatever you want to call it. And I always thought that this is a stepping stone and a sort of bridge or moth into a butterfly moment, more or less, that it's not that far removed from him, because at the end of the day, I wrote most of the songs and I sang all that stuff. So the music would have to be very, very different from people not to realize or recognize it be me. And in this particular case, it gives us the opportunity of mixing the old with the new, and also the fact that h.i.m were around for quite a bit. So there's the old h.i.m stuff and then the later h.i.m stuff, and so there's a bit of variety there as well. And working on the set list, the cool thing about it was that it wasn't so much about what to play, but it was like, which songs can we not skip? Because like it felt that there's few songs like Join Me in Death or Right Here in My Arms, Buried Alive by Love, that have been there forever, it seems. And they're very, and essentially they're a very important part of who I am. And to me, it would feel weird not to shriek those things out, yodel them each and every night. So I thought it happened very organically. And I'm still switching the set around, and we're still working on little tiny details, which keeps ourselves on our toes, which is a good thing and an important thing. And the band is great. And the cool thing, as you know, since you were in Wacken, is that we have two guitar players. So we're able to do some of the h.i.m stuff closer to how the albums were, with the pretty arpeggiated stuff happening while the other guitar is more fuzzy and gnarly. And I
Yeah.
love the beauty of the beast aspect, which Linde, the guitar player of him, he's a fantastic guitar player, but with just one guitar player, you weren't able to do all the
Yeah.
sort of like extremes at the same time. So it's nice to be able to also find arrangement-wise uh, something new regarding the old songs.
No, and like I said as well, and for all those going to the shows come March, you're going to be very, very happy with the product you're going to get. I did want to ask you one more question before I let you go today, because I've been kind of fixated on it ever since the music video come out. Can you tell me a bit about the story of Love Letting, the music video? Because it is fascinating.
Oh, the surreal sort of Salvador Dali Black Sheep sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's a Yeah, it's miraculous how so many people interpret having sheep in a video in such a different way.
Mm.
At least to us in Finland, I love animals. At the end of the day, animals are fascinating. They're fascinating to look at because
Mm.
they just are. I was my mom and dad, they had a rescue dog when I was born, and the rescue dog taught me how to walk. So I've always been super close to animals. When he passed, Sammy was his name. I developed all my asthmas and allergies, so it must be
Oh.
psychosomatic. And so we were thinking of what kind of an animal will fit the song and the vibe, and also to sort of keep the surreal, because I like the David Lynchian aspect of it, that you really
Mm.
don't know what's going on and what it doesn't really make sense. I really love the director for coming up with the idea that's more about visuals than a storyline. And well, the black sheep for me, it's a sort of like the symbol for the outsider, and I
Yeah.
thought that it just feels, and there's something cuddly about sheep as well.
Mm.
So it kind of fits the love metal
Yes.
thing, as opposed to, having a black goat, which is more sort of like venom and satanic or whatever. It's too much of a one thing. Nothing against goats, by the way, but it just felt so, because I love when visuals and music give you mixed messages. You're not
Mm.
like, what did what's this all about? What's really happening? If you try to explain that video late, after you've seen it to a friend, you just sound like a madman. So which I find that's a mission accomplished.
My wife, in fact, she's going to be embarrassed that I'm telling this story. She actually goes, I think he might be a vampire. And because vampires are these immortal beings, it's almost like it doesn't matter what they find fascinating in anyone, whether it be a human, whether it be a creature like a sheep. So it was almost like you were having this bond between something you couldn't talk to, but you could understand.
Well, that's actually a good theory in essence, that a lot of times you can't, you're trying to, but you can't really speak to a person either, because it's very tough to find the language that, especially talking about emotions
Mm.
and talking about the existence of it all. So in that sense, it might be about the language barrier, but nevertheless, or the communication barrier between us people too. But nevertheless, we still want to spend time with each other, even though we don't understand each other. So, but for me, it's a bit more simple. It's just the fact that I love animals, and I love
Yeah.
love the fact that there is the wordless sense of communication, and that it's never transactional with animals.
No.
It's quite blue-eyed, and it's quite naive in the most beautiful way, in the most endearing way, which is quite rare these days in the world outside of the animal kingdom. And yeah, yeah. But God bless. Thanks for your wife to sort of like throw me a curveball.
Hey, at least we did something today. I got you something to think about. Well, I won't keep you too much longer, mate. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Is there anything you wanted to say to the Australian fans before you make your way down here in March?
Well, I'm glad that people have seem to have the patience. Since it's been a while, the album was out and out here last year, and I'm super stoked to be able to fly over and play some music, and hopefully there will be people around to enjoy the festivities. It's not a given,
Yeah.
especially as you said, with regarding the audience, that it could be over any day. Hopefully, we're not that doomy and gloomy, but
No.
the pandemic taught us to maybe to seize the moment a tad more live in the present as opposed to in tomorrow, which is a lot of times is the case.
Well, my wife and I will be there in Sydney, so I'm very much looking forward to it. Ville, thank you once again. You have a fantastic day, mate. I can't wait till you're here. Cheers,
Take
mate.
it easy, mate.
Thank you. Bye.
Later. Bye. Bye.